Hello, gang. Welcome back to the Why Not Me podcast. I'm Kevin Delgado, and I'm excited to be here. And before we get started, let's pray. God, thank you so much for today. Thank you so much for this moment. I pray you use my words. Let me be a vessel. Speak through me. Let me pray. Amen. So today, I want to reintroduce myself, and one of the most foundational aspects of the Why Not Me journey, the Why Not Me movement. Okay. So first of all, who am I? I'm Kevin Delgado, the host of the Why Not Me podcast, but I'm much more than that. I am a believer. I live my life through faith and seeking wisdom. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a competitor. I'm an achiever. I'm a dreamer, innovator, and I love humanity. I think people are incredible. I think they're a wonderful creation, and I think they're just so amazing, especially when you reframe the way that you view life and you view yourself. I love to mobilize people. I love to inspire people. And I love to challenge myself in the same way and mobilize and inspire myself in the same way. And I haven't always been this way. I've always had nuggets of this in my life, but I haven't quite been so refined yet. So part of what I'm doing right now, I call it the Reboot episodes, is I'm going to go through topics that I talked about 2-3 years ago, and I'm going to rehash them now from my perspective in life. So first of all, how did I get here to where I have a podcast called Why Not Me? I spent a lot of my time playing sports and competing in sports, and that's a lot of what developed me and how I grew up and what formed me and shaped me. And I attribute a lot of my success to my athletic background and success. I am good at sports, but I was never the best at any sport. And I think what I learned was that there's so much more than just being the best. You don't have to be the best to make an impact. And I think what happened was that epiphany helped me be better in what I do in general. And since I've carried that into all aspects of my life, so the lessons I learned in athletics and sports and competing, I applied it to my marriage, the way I father, the way I lead the household, at work, in life with my friendships, etc. So that's kind of been a big formative piece of my life. And I started off playing all sorts of sports, but the real big formative years were in college when I went to the University of Central Florida, and I competed there as a cheerleader for 4 years. And I was so fortunate to have the most incredible, thoughtful, and intentional coaches that take me from being a young, naive boy and help me become a man, a leader, an ambassador, just a competent person, someone who's ready to make a difference in the world. And those lessons they gave me, it's now become my calling to pay that forward, and also the lessons I learned along the way to share those out as well. So that's how we got here into the Why Not Me podcast and the Why Not Me journey. And basically, I just feel really compelled that I want to be not only living out my Why Not Me, but also encouraging others to pursue their own Why Not Me, and putting out there in the world the good things. And the idea, the Why Not Me framework, the Why Not Me journey, it is simply asking yourself, why not me? Why can't it be me? And that question in my life, what it's done is reframe my approach to everything. It's allowed me to look at life from a growth mindset and an optimistic standpoint rather than a pessimistic standpoint and a limitation mindset. So oftentimes as humans, we see something out there that seems incredible and we want to do, or we have this passion in our heart, but we're like, that could never be me. I can't do that. I'm not made for that, or I'm not fortunate enough for that. And therefore we accept what we get. I've lived life asking myself, why not me? Why can't I dream big? Why can't I achieve it? I started in sports. Why can't I be on an elite team? Why can't I compete at the highest level? Why can't I do it at the highest level? Why can't I be a leader, a mentor, a servant, a follower? Why can't I be a good husband, a good father? Why can't I be a professional? Why can't I be inspiring others to mobilize? Why can't I move the kingdom? That's been my approach. And what I love about it is asking the questions, why not me? It moves you. It moves you from this place of seeing yourself by your limitations and understanding, defining yourself by your limitations, to seeing yourself by your possibilities. And it is a framework that allows you to disregard like these self-imposed limitations. Us humans, we're so quick to think about all the things we did wrong, and we hyper focus on, oh man, I wish I would have never said that, or I wish I would have done that differently. The more we tell ourselves those things, the more that becomes the way we see ourselves in the mirror. When you ask, why not me, it allows you to see yourself a little bit differently in the mirror and start to understand more about who you are. And I'm a firm believer that, every person was designed with a unique purpose and giftings. And it takes us seeing that somehow to start believing it and shifting our mindset. The why not me framework is also really about like breaking the shackles that hold you back from dreaming and achieving. And it helps you really lean into discovering, like, what is my purpose? What is my meaning in life? What about what I want to do? When you consider, all right, your biggest dreams and your biggest failures, things that you're like, I really wish I would have gone and done that differently. Biggest regrets. I wonder what would have happened if you would have asked or said, why not me during that moment? Would that have changed you? And I believe that when you ask the question, why not me, it changes the way you view your purpose, because at that point you're saying, well, if there's no limitations, if there's no boundaries or there's no limits on what I'm being called to do, God calls me, he's gonna pull me through it, then let's just go do it. It's a way to mobilize humans, myself, an individual, that focuses on the ambitions, the goals, and the passions, and not the fears, not the limitations, and not the negative words that I say to myself in the mirror. And I think the number one foundational aspect, to jumping into your why not me journey, is this idea of having a radical approach and a radical mindset. And I have a definition I want to read. The word radical, it's defined as a person, idea, or action favoring extreme, thorough, or fundamental change, often going to the root of a problem rather than making minor reforms. And I think that definition alone, when I thought about, I want to live a life that's radical, it's not that I'm going to go out and be way far out there and be extreme and crazy, but it's the idea that I'm not going to look at life as a thing of I got to do what's normal or what's common. Rather, it is I'm going to be committed to my calling, and I'm going to do it in a way that is seen as extreme, meaning I'm bought in, I'm all the way, I'm going for the big dream, and I'm going for the core of the dream. I'm not going to water it down. I'm not going to make it something smaller. If God puts his dream on my heart and he paints a picture this way, however big, however scary, so be it, God. That's what I'm going to do. And the radical mindset is the first step to that. It's thinking about things in a radical way rather than saying, okay, what's the logical, pragmatic way? What can't I do? What do people normally do? Is anybody around me doing these things? And saying, no, you know what? My why not me is worthy. My why not me is worth it. My purpose is worth it. Let's dream and think big and let's be radical here. So the radical mindset, it really means that when you're thinking day to day, it's a practice. You have to be disciplined about practicing a radical mindset. You're thinking through things in a way that it's imagining, dreaming, goal setting beyond your current environment. And I think that's the big piece. So often humans, we strive for comfort, and comfort can mean that I'm staying in one place, okay? When you think and live with a radical mindset, not only do your goals get bigger, do your dreams get bigger, do you remove barriers and boundaries to your life, you also start getting the bigger, the scarier, and the unknown dreams, things you've never done before. And I think that's, when you get to that spot, you're in the right place. You're really tapping into what are the things that deep down in my heart I would love to do, but I'm too afraid to do it. That's when you know you're thinking radically and you're doing it the right way according to your why not me journey. The radical mindset, it's moving us from a place of I'm unwilling to change, and success for me is consistency and comfort, to a place where I'm like, I must change and I must evolve. In order to get to my dream, the only way forward is to embrace change. The purpose that has been laid on my heart as I pursue it, I'm going to go through change. I'm going to go through evolutions, and I'm going to go through hard times. All those things are going to be working to make you better, stronger, and more prepared for your why not me. A lot of when I was growing up, my circle, what I saw around me was this idea of like comfort and complacency that was almost like stifling, where people would be happy where they were because it's what they knew. And if you like go outside in your neighborhood and you look around, what are other people doing? What cars are they driving? What do they eat? Where do they vacation? What are they like? That usually is what we look to see what should I be doing. And I think that this idea of comfort and complacency and familiarity is a crutch that we lean on way too much. And the radical mindset says, hey, comfort and familiarity is not success. It's not like what your life's purpose is. Think bigger, go bigger. Comfort and complacency, those two words are what's going to be the detriment, the killer of your dreams, of your goals, of your passions, whatever they may be. Rather than I'm going to be happy where I am because it's comfortable and familiar, really seek wisdom. Think about, okay, I'm here right now. Is there a purpose for me being here? Is there a purpose for me staying here? And if there is, wonderful. Listen to that calling. But if there's more you're being called to, move with wisdom. When wisdom comes, you move with it. So using the radical mindset, it's not only to set a meaningful course for yourself. So we talked about this idea that the radical mindset allows me to really imagine and view myself in a different light. And that is very important. That's part one of the radical mindset. The other part of the radical mindset is reframing the way that you talk to yourself, reframing the way that you see yourself, and reframing and examining where you are in life now. And this happened for me several years ago. I was in a career path that seemed normal, seemed natural, was comfortable. And I had a lot of people telling me that I was doing great work. And I found myself just accepting that this is my future, even when I was unhappy. And that moment was pivotal in my life. And I've learned that life is way too short and way too beautiful to just be overly safe because you're afraid to fail. Now, be wise, but don't be overly safe because you're afraid to fail. The next piece of that I want to talk about, the why not me journey, we have this radical mindset. The way that we view ourselves, the way that we view our journey, the way that we goal set, the way that we dream, okay, what we pursue. That's a very important part. The other part of like the foundation to why not me is words, okay? Words are powerful, whether you like to admit it or not. And so many of us walk around our lives saying, oh, that didn't hurt my feelings, or those words don't mean nothing to me. And I think there's a certain level of jadedness or defense that we build up over time that, yeah, maybe those words don't impact us as much from certain people. But at the end of the day, words have weight. And the weight of words will shape your life, depending on what words you allow to be a part of your life. You know, words are powerful. Like I've said words that were so destructive to people that it moved them to the tears, and it broke relationships, and it put space between me and that person. And I've said words where it moved people to tears in the opposite direction, where they were excited. They saw themselves differently. They were energized. They were invigorated with this. I want to pursue this dream now, and I see myself this way. Thank you. And so I've experienced both of the extremes of words. And also, I've experienced the impact words have on me, my own words. I want to quote this scripture from Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat the fruit. And I think this is such a great proverb and example of how destructive or positive a word and a tongue could be. So it's important that when we're doing our Why Not Me journey, we're watching the words that we say. We're watching the words we say because our words have weight, and that weight will move you. What you say to the self is going to have an effect on you, whether you like it or not. When you look in the mirror and you see yourself, when you are thinking about your next goal, your next job, what you want to achieve, the words you say to yourself immediately after are going to dictate what you do. They're going to dictate what you do. So when we're saying in the mirror, I'm not fit enough, I will never be good enough, I could never attract a spouse, or I could never achieve such level, or when it comes to work, I could never complete this project, that's not me. Eventually, those will begin to feel like the truth to you. If you say that enough to yourself, that will become your truth. So what are you saying? When you're walking through life, when you're going from a day-to-day basis, what are you telling yourself? What's consuming your mind, and what is your own voice in your mind telling you? Is it speaking life, or is it destroying? What you tell yourself ultimately is going to shape the way that you view yourself. It's going to shape your identity. It's going to shape when you explain to someone or introduce yourself to someone, hey, I'm Kevin, nice to meet you, so-and-so. I'm this, and that. The things you say to yourself in the mirror is going to shape that. So it's important that we're very intentional with what we say. And take this opportunity now. We know that words have weight, and what I say to myself matters. Start building yourself up. If you are not advocating for yourself, who will advocate for you? You should be the first person to say, I am capable, I can do this, because you are the only person who truly knows what you have inside of you, what you have in your heart, what you have in your mind, and what you are willing to do for your dreams. So from here on out, stop beating yourself up. There's accountability, there's grace. However, the words must be constructive. There must be a way forward out of all the words. If you use your words to break you or to break down or to dig deeper into a cut or in a wound, then you're going to feel yourself be burdened by those words. You're going to feel heavier because of those words you're saying to yourself. These words, the words that we say, no matter how much we like to downplay them, they bind to us, and they're going to do something to us, right? So when I use words that are going to be destructive, that are not positive, not uplifting, that's going to slow me down. You know, just the very nature of adding weight to your shoulders is going to slow you down. It's going to take away your momentum. It's going to change the way that you see yourself, and you're going to be adding this weight to yourself that's ultimately going to slow you down and maybe even stop you entirely from pursuing that dream. I can't imagine, or I can think of so many times where in a moment I felt compelled to do something, and I wanted to say, no, you know what? It's not right. I'm not worthy of that. I shouldn't do this. That could never be me. I could never get a meeting with this person. I could never get this girl to go on a date with me. I will never be able to marry a girl like her. I will never be able to get this job or be an entrepreneur or be a father or what you name it. There's been many times where I've said it to myself that I don't even deserve this. What am I doing here? And for a moment, I believed it. And for that moment, I stopped pursuing that. I was like, well, you know what? If this is the truth, then I'm just not even going to worry about it. Luckily, thankfully, I snapped out of it, and I got back to building myself up. But keep this in mind. Your words have weight, and they're heavy. They're heavy. And if the words land on you in a way that they're putting a burden on you, they're going to slow you down, and you will lose momentum. And it's going to affect the way that you integrate and talk to other people, and the way you show up as a husband and as a father and as a professional, okay? The words you say first thing in the morning when you look in the mirror to yourself, the words you say to yourself when you encounter a challenge, the words you say to yourself when you fall short, all these words, the words you say to yourself when you do something good, they all matter, okay? Now, on the other end of that, when you use words that are additive, that are constructive, and you choose to believe, like, okay, I'm going to tell myself this, and I'm going to believe it, the opposite effect happens. It's amazing. Now you take this metaphorical weight from being this thing that's crushing you to this thing that's propelling you. The weight of a word can propel you. Uh, when a positive word that you want to believe comes into your mind and you say it out to yourself, that can move you to do something you didn't think you'd be able to do simply by encouraging yourself to do it, okay? And over time, the more that you build yourself up, the more that becomes your truth. Rather than me seeing myself as, oh, I'm a flawed human being, which I am, and I have all these shortcomings. Now I'm saying I am a flawed human being, and I love to empower people. I'm good at this. I'm good at X, Y, and Z. And therefore, these are my skills and my gifts and what I'm contributing to the world. When I approach all of my life, I'm going to flow through my gifts. That is what happens when you start using positive words with yourself. Now, let's take that a little bit further, okay? So we're committing to speaking to ourselves in a way that builds us, a way that speaks life, right? Because our tongue has the power to destroy, has the power to build up. So let's continue to do that. And think about, if you don't advocate for yourself, if you don't build yourself up first, then you can't expect anyone else to do it. Now, thankfully, we have great friends that will move us and will call us out and say, hey, you need to get out of this funk. Come on, let's go. That's great. However, it starts with you. It starts with you. It starts with me. Let's make sure that every word we speak to ourselves is either rooted in accountability that is leading a way forward, he's giving me a path forward, or it is speaking a truth that maybe I forgot or I need to be reminded about. You know, before I have a big meeting, you got this. You are here for a purpose. You have something they want and need. You have knowledge, experience, and talents they could benefit from, and you're going to make this place better. Okay? Start approaching life that way. Watch the difference. Commit to it day to day, every day. Encourage yourself. Say something positive to yourself and believe it to be true. And watch how your self-image, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you interact, your confidence all changes because of these words you say. Your words have weight, and it starts with you. Now, once we start practicing, how do we build ourselves up in a way that's meaningful, right? It's okay to hold yourself accountable. Accountability should happen. If you want to be great, you need to be growing. However, that doesn't mean you're just going to harm yourself and attack yourself. That means that if you fell short, you're going to figure out why and create a path forward, okay? Then let's think about, how do words impact others around me? Okay, I have a wife, I have kids. I might say something that I think is silly and not heavy or not impactful, and that might be the very thing that causes my son trauma. That might be the very baggage my son carries throughout his life that gives him trust issues. My words will shape the way my wife sees herself. If I'm telling her things like, hey, you're not enough, you're not doing this enough, well, eventually, you know what she's going to question? Am I enough? However, when I choose to be productive, constructive, and give life to my words, that changes the way my child, my kids, my wife see themselves. When someone else outside of you, someone who knows you, loves you, trusts you, when they speak something into you that maybe you weren't saying to yourself, and you love them and trust them and believe them, and you receive that word, it moves you. It shapes you even more so than those words you say to yourself. So make sure that when you are speaking with others, today, tomorrow, every day, whether it's your most loved, most trusted family member that you know they're never going to run away, your spouse, your child, or someone you just met that you're never going to see again, speak life to them, okay? And make sure in everything you say, even in the hard times, it's rooted in love and this accountability that is calling people forward and upward, okay? We live in a world where it's so easy and natural to pick apart, to deconstruct, and destroy with no intention of rebuilding. We just like to destroy. Social media, you want to put things out there that are controversial. The comments are all about destroying people. It's all about taking away credibility, taking away self-worth, taking away self-image. You don't deserve this. You're wrong. You're an idiot. Think about our country right now. It's divided. over words. that are pointing fingers saying, you're not right, you're wrong. Like, let's stop that. Let's focus on changing this. We have this radical mindset. Let's imagine a life for ourselves and for our environment that is radically in line with our purpose, bigger than what we could ever dream of, and positive and impactful. And let's watch our words. Let's be intentional with our words, okay? And let's remember, when I say this word, I can never take it back. That word never comes back. I can't undo it. Whether I say sorry, that was a mistake, that word was still there, and that word still resonates in someone's head. So when you speak, be wise, discern, take your time, okay? I think it's very important that when you do speak, you speak in absolute truth that you're willing to stand on, and you do it out of love and respect for someone, whether it's constructive or a compliment or an encouragement, right? Because the likelihood is, if you do that over time consistently, people will start to trust that your words are truth, your words are meaningful, and your words will gain weight, okay? The more that you practice speaking life and speaking truth and thinking about through your words and being wise and discerning in the words you say, consistently over time, the more weight your words gain. We call that influence, okay? I've been married to my wife for 7 years. 7 years, I think. So if I were to say something now to her that is destructive, it'd carry a little more weight than it would be, if she was a stranger and I didn't know anything about her. Say, hey, fix this, or you're not good enough for this. Because she would just brush me off like, who are you? I don't even know you, But now that I know her intimately, and that is my soulmate, my best friend for 7 years, if I speak life to her, that's going to move her. If I speak destruction to her, that's going to stop her with a lot more weight, with a lot more influence. So as you practice this, just know the influence grows, the weight grows. Therefore, you have to be wise. You have to discern, and you have to be intentional with every word you speak, because those words can never be taken back, and they will stick. And the person will echo those words in their head, over and over again, okay? No matter what you do. So make sure it's something you really mean and believe in. Words, they can create scars. They can leave wounds. Words can destroy. Words can stitch a wound. Words can heal a wound. Words could reinforce the way someone sees themselves. Words can motivate someone to pursue their dream. Words can bring a family closer. Words can bring a relationship closer. Words can make you and your spouse have a deeper, more authentic relationship. The words you choose to say can make or break your business. All of that. Words have weight. So manage them well, okay? I will never forget this moment that I realized just the weight of words and how important a radical mindset was. And this was like more recent in my life. I've been in working in higher education, and I was in a role that was incredible. It was a blessing for me in that point in time, and I rose through the ranks, and I had this pathway to do the next level in that department and oversee this department. That the people were incredible, the work is meaningful and important, but I thought it was for me. I was like, okay, this path makes total sense. I have a very clear growth pathway where I could just stay here and be comfortable, complacent, and I will grow over time. And I won't be rich, but it's going to take care of my family, and it's stable, safe income, and I know the work, I can do it well. And the further I got closer to that, the more I got closer to that role and to being in the leadership role and the growing and developing into the next step, the more I realized that this job was no longer aligning with my purpose, with what I wanted to do, with my why not me journey. And I'd fallen into this place where I thought my role as a man, as a husband, as a father, was to stay put because this is providing for your family. Even though I was unhappy, I was tired, I was stressed, I was not nice, I wasn't being the father and husband I wanted to be because of the impact this role had on me. I found myself being more drained than I was being charged up. There was more things in my job that were taken away from me than they were adding to me. And I accepted it. I lost sight of my radical mindset. I was okay with being where I was. And I had chalked it up as this is what life is meant to be. It's meant to be you stay put because it's a safe thing to do and you don't want to do anything that could put your family at risk. And listen, I think it's important that you don't. You mitigate as much risk as possible. But risk is inevitable. You do not know what's happening tomorrow. Risk is inevitable. Therefore, comfort and complacency, those words should not be anywhere in your Why Not Me journey, okay? I was sitting in my role, done it for several years, doing a great job, have a good team, I'm stable, comfortable, and have a clear pathway. Hey, in the next year or two, we're going to tap you to be the next level up here. You'll be in a leadership role. You're going to grow more salary. You'll be all right. You'll be taken care of. I thought, rad. Heck yeah, really cool. Honey, check this out. Look what I just got the opportunity to do. I'm so excited for us. And yet, on the inside, I knew that this role would take me so far away from my purpose, from my Why Not Me, of mobilizing, inspiring, and encouraging people to see themselves the way that they were made and designed for a purpose that is larger. And I understand in that moment that if I go and pursue my purpose, I'm going to put my comfort, my complacency at risk. But I wasn't happy. I was not happy, and I wasn't doing well. And I was accepting it, and the words I was telling myself in the mirror was, you're okay. It's not the worst. You're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Just do it. And those words, they burdened me, and they kept me down in that seat to where I was not going to move, no matter how unhappy I was, because I'd stopped looking beyond what was in my environment. I stopped imagining what my life could be, what God has in store for me next. And I started saying, this must be it. Therefore, I am staying put. And as I accepted that, over time, I lost my life. I lost my spark. I lost my joy. I lost my energy, and it started to show up. About a year after that moment, my wife and I were in a really difficult situation because I was not being myself. And she knew that, and she's known that for a long time, and she put up with it for a long time. But one day, I told her, I'm like, I'm not really sure that I'm happy in my job. And she says, Kevin, I've been meaning to tell you this. I don't see you doing that job. That's not what you're being called to do. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, obviously I'm being called to do it because this is what I'm being asked to do next. It's my next promotion. It's going to provide for my family. And she's like, and yet I don't see you doing X, Y, and Z. That has taken you away from your call, from your purpose. That is not okay. And then I asked her, I'm like, well, what do you see me doing? She's like, well, Kevin, I see you motivating people. I see you standing in front of people, inspiring the masses to move. I see you encouraging people, helping folks grow, develop, and achieve things that are meaningful to them, helping organizations move in a direction that's positive towards the future. I see you making things better for others. And when I heard that, I was blown away. 1,000%. I never in my life thought that I would have my wife sit there and tell me, even though this job will provide for us, I know it's going to take away the very thing that makes you you. Therefore, you shouldn't do it. You're missing your calling. You're missing your purpose. Go and do this. And as my wife, she could have said, no, stay there. That's stable. Keep it. Instead, she says, pursue your purpose, your passion. I trust God. I trust you. That will provide. And that moment right there, the weight that her words carried in my life, that sparked my radical mindset, that made me realize, oh my goodness, I've been living for 2.5 years, just shutting myself down, numbing myself, quieting myself so that I don't have to deal with this. And now, because of my incredible wife, I see life differently. I see myself differently. The words she gave me, that immediately became my truth. Not the words that I was telling myself earlier about, hey, just do it, stay comfortable. That stuff you're dreaming about, that's not real life. This is real life. No, the minute she said those words, that squashed that issue. And now I'm saying, oh my goodness, she's right. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. There's so much more to do, so much more to say, so much more to learn, so much more of a difference to make. And I'm ready to make it. And it was that moment that pushed me to be here where I am today, in a place where I'm doing, again, the Why Not Me podcast, where we're building spaces, places, academies for people to become who they're called to be, for people to come in, bit lost, curious, unknown with this goal, this vision, this dream, and leave ready to mobilize with partners, with people who are hand in hand with them. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for my wife. Where I am today professionally, love my job. I get to help people troubleshoot, shift and create and innovate, bring the right people in, and do the greater good together. I love that. And I never would have been there if it wasn't for my wife saying those words to me. And praise God that she took the time to say the words with intention, with wisdom and truth, because she knew the moment she said those words, the weight of those words, the weight that she had in my life, the influence she had in my life would move me outside of myself, would move me outside of my boundaries, would move me outside of my barriers, and will push me to see myself the way that I am created. So today, the challenge is, first of all, let's start practicing the radical mindset. Think about what is that burden, that passion you have in your heart that you push aside because it seems too big. Now, dream about that radically. There's no limitations, no barriers. God is good, therefore you can. The second challenge is, what are you speaking to yourself today in the mirror, tomorrow in the mirror? This week, speak life to yourself and identify one person to speak life to consistently. And you will see the impact that has on you, on them, and on your life. The radical mindset's important. Words carry weight. Be sure you use those tools wisely. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was good for you. Catch you next episode. Peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Why Not Me podcast. I hope this episode inspired you and challenged you, and it was something you needed to hear. And if it was, please share it with somebody, a coworker, a friend, a family member, a significant other. You never know. They could be just one conversation away from experiencing real breakthrough. If you don't already follow or subscribe, please do so on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And remember, the growth you want, the life you want, the impact you want, all of that can change by asking one question: why not me? I'll see you next episode.